This is Bill Baldwin of Boulevard Realty with an update on flood maps. Please be aware that the Harris County flood maps are about to change. In fact, the way flood maps will be determined is totally new and revolutionary. Make yourself aware of the process and the timeline at Map Next. Map Next stands for Harris County Modeling, Assessment, and Awareness Project, the first of its kind in the nation. It's the next generation of flood mapping using new methodologies, new technology, and new data. The new maps will be released in early 2025, and thousands of homes in Harris County are expected to be added to both the 100 and 500-year floodplains. Likewise, many homes may no longer be in the 100 or 500-year floodplains. After the announcement, there will be a period of 6 to 9 months of education and input. The adoption is not likely until late 2025 at the earliest. Please keep up to date and refer to Map Next on the Harris County Flood Control website.
HAR TV has expanded and we're now offering video services at 4 locations. Our Fort Bend branch located at 6608 Greatwood Parkway in Sugar Land. Our Montgomery County branch located at 25700 I-45 North in Spring. Our Bay Area branch located at 17225 El Camino Real in Bay Area. And our original location at HAR Central located at 3693 Southwest Freeway in Houston. All 4 locations offer all the same high quality video production that you have always experienced here at our central location. Contact us today to get your video appointment scheduled at any one of our 4 locations.
As realtors, we help our clients with all sorts of matters, including how to find available resources that may assist with the down payment. We are proud to announce that Down Payment Resource is now available on har.com. This will allow consumers to find out if they meet the criteria for any of the 70 different assistance programs available in the greater Houston region. Some programs are income-based, but many allow higher incomes than you may think. There are also programs specific for people in certain professions, such as police officers, firefighters, teachers, healthcare workers, and others. About 89% of all listings for sale in Houston qualify for some sort of down payment. To find out more, you may visit www.har.com/down payment and work with your realtor to make sure you have everything you need to be able to purchase the home of your dreams.
Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Claudia Hernandez, Director of Video Services for HAR. And today I'd like to welcome HAR Director of Political Affairs and TREPAC, Karen Driscoll, and HR Director of Governmental Affairs and Advocacy, Alfred Burton. Welcome, ladies.
Good morning, Claudia.
Good morning. So for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do at HAR. Let's go ahead and start with Amber.
Okay, first it's Amber Burton, Alfred.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know you know that, Claudia. I'm just teasing you. But I know I have 3 names. It can be confusing sometimes. But I'm a director. I also have 3 words in my department: governmental affairs and advocacy. So what that means is we are your department that works with the government, your elected officials, other entities to make sure that real estate industry issues are at the forefront. But we also work with the members to make sure that HAR is an advocate for policies and other issues that impact real estate.
Great. And Karen?
Awesome. I'm your HR Director of Political Affairs and TREPAC, which means I'm in charge of raising money for our Political Action Committee and also supporting candidates that HAR supports and also helping to get them elected, but through grassroots efforts and get out the vote efforts.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for those introductions. So let's just go ahead and get started on these questions. And remember, if you have any questions or comments for Amber or Karen, just leave them in the comment section and we'll get to them shortly. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So last week, big day, President Trump was sworn in, and that was a race we all watched. However, in November, we not only had a presidential election, but we had a lot of state races as well on the ballot, with a few upsets. So how did we do in our region, Karen?
We actually did quite well. We actually had a 91% success rate overall, Claudia, in our support HAR recommended candidates. And we actually supported 124 different candidates at the state, local, state, and national levels in the 2024 elections. So very exciting times. We were very busy getting out the vote.
Yes, awesome. That sounds great. All right, and as everyone knows, the Texas legislative session began on January 14th. Hopefully everybody knows that. But can you tell us how long it will happen and what happens during this time, Amber?
Sure. So yes, I hope everybody knows last week, the Texas legislature convened for the 89th time. So that lets you know Texas has been around nearly 200 years, but we only have had 89 sessions. So we only meet every odd year. We don't meet yearly. So I'm sure when Texas was formed, that was a great idea. However, now that Texas is one of the most largest states population-wise and economic-wise, it's a little bit hard. So typically they meet for 140 days every other year, every odd year, but the governor can call special sessions for 30 days at a time. And in the last session in 2023, we had 4 special sessions. So they were in throughout to the fall, back and forth at the session. So they don't get to address everything. So to let you know, there's about roughly 10,000 bills that were filed last session. So try to get a bunch of elected officials to agree or disagree on these bills in 140 days is quite a feat that doesn't really happen that smoothly. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But we're excited to be working with Texas Realtors and to stay in the loop on what's going on up there.
Yeah, that's great. And so, as you mentioned, we know a number of bills that have been filed that impact the real estate industry. What are the top issues that we'll be tracking during this session, Amber?
So Texas Realtors has a priority bill you can find on the website, but we also track any bills at the state and national level that really impact local real estate. All politics starts at the local level. I know earlier you mentioned that we had a presidential election, which is extremely important, but I think people need to remember we have 3 branches of government. We have executive, judiciary, and representative legislative sections. So we need to make sure that for example, judicial elections in Texas are done by the voters, which is at a local level. So the issues we're tracking relate to what's going on at the local level. One of them would be land use. So that's anything from eminent domain all the way to property tax issues. So land use really covers a lot, but property tax issues is one thing that we look at, but not just the tax rate, so to speak. It's just, let's say, like, for instance, when you are switching an agricultural land to a land to build housing, there's a fee and a tax that goes along with that because you're changing the use of the land. So those type of issues we're looking at. I'm trying to give some hot topics because there's a bunch, but another one is it's real estate related, but not that we've tracked over the years is broadband access to broadband internet. If you're on here as a member, you have DocuSign. It's difficult to have to try to use snail mail if your client that lives in rural Texas doesn't have access to internet. So that's one that's adjacent to real estate, but not really real estate related. Some other ones that are more problematic that we really have to stay on top of is the foreign land buyer bill. Texas last session looked to get rid of allowing certain groups from certain countries to buy land in Texas. And obviously that's problematic if it's not done properly and the wrong people or the wrong reasons are targeted. So that's one that we really are on top of. It did not pass last time, but there's several people trying to bring it back. So we're watching that really closely. And another one I'll mention quickly is they call it the Death Star bill, but what it was a bill to regulate, I know it was very dramatic, but it was a state attempting to regulate local governments more, so zoning issues, permitting issues, things like that. So we're watching that because we are Houston Association of Realtors. We are a local association that works with a lot of local governments. So we want to make sure that we keep that access in the locals of government's ability to really to govern their own cities and municipalities.
Okay, that's great. That's a lot. So let's move on to Karen. What is Realtor Day at the Capitol? We know it's coming up in March. We know it happens every other year on the odd years, like Amber had mentioned, but can you explain a little more about what happens on that day?
So on that day, Realtor Day at the Texas Capitol is a true day of grassroots effort. All realtors from across the state of Texas converge on the Capitol. They ride buses. Houston will actually have 6 buses ourselves. We'll take up buses of realtors, and we'll all meet up there, and everyone will go and have meetings with their state legislators and talk to them about these issues that Amber just mentioned a few minutes ago and why they're so important to real estate, and talk to them about how these issues impact their clients. It's really those testimonials and that peer-to-peer conversations with your elected officials that really make a difference. And so that's what we do that day. We have a big rally, and of course we feed you, and we have a barbecue lunch. But over like almost 3,000 realtors go to the Texas Capitol all together on that one day. And this year it's March 26th, Claudia.
March 26th. All right, so everybody mark their calendars. And now all of these are meetings with, elected officials or representatives that HAR sets up for the members, correct?
Yes. The member just has to get on the bus. We'll take care of all the details, handle all the administration part. But yeah, we just really encourage them to come and spend that time networking with realtors from across the state and getting to know their elected officials and the issues going on at the Capitol.
And do you by chance remember how many Texas realtors were there a couple years ago?
I want to say 2,500.
Okay, so big number to represent Texas, but also just representing realtors from across the state, right? So if you have questions about Realtor Day at the Capitol, please leave them in the comments, or any questions, leave them in the chat. So Amber, does your team only track local issues, or do you monitor state level issues as well? I know you mentioned that, but can you go into detail a little more?
So we monitor all issues, all policies that impact real estate as a whole. So that's local, state, and federal. We work with, if it's a state or federal issue, we work with our counterparts at Texas Realtors and the National Association of Realtors, or TR and NAR. We love acronyms in real estate. So we work with them when there's an issue that we're seeing. Like, so for example, right now we're going to Austin. So we're going to work with Texas Realtors on that actual event because it's a statewide event. And there's an issue that impacts the state. We don't want to do something that's only good for Houston, but it's going to hurt the rest of Texas. Houston tends to always be kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, population-wise, density-wise, all the issues, flooding-wise. So we have a lot of issues that we deal with locally, like flooding, that have state and federal components that we have to work on. So yeah, to answer your question, we do track them all. Flooding is a really good example of how that's a local, state, and federal, because you have your flood control districts at the local level, your LIDs, your MUDs, and then you also have the General Land Office, which handles those types of issues as well at the state level. But then you also have FEMA and other federal entities that all that money and policy trickles down, and we all have to work together, not in silos. That's the hope, that we work together to get that stuff to actually mitigate flood and other natural disasters.
Right. All right. And so I feel like I'm going back a little bit more, like I'm back in school here with this question. But Amber, this is for you. How and when do bills become law?
Okay. So yeah. And I don't know if you guys remember, maybe I'm showing my age, but the I'm a Bill on Saturday morning.
I do remember that.
Bill. So that was for federal. And Congress meets differently. They meet all throughout the year. They have recess and things like that. So at the federal level, they're meeting more often, obviously, because they have to deal with all the states. But a bill in Texas, as I mentioned, we only have initially 140 days every other year, and lots of bills get filed. But the next step, once the bills are filed, bill filing this year started November 12th. So before the session started, about roughly 2 months before the session started. It's still going on somewhat. People will make amendments. That's where government affairs comes in. We see a bill that's like, we like that bill, but Senator so-and-so, we don't like this. It's going to hurt real estate transactions. This is the time where we would reach out to Texas Realtors and say, hey, we're concerned about, section such and such in this bill, and kind of go back and forth. That's the advocacy piece. But once you get all that, it goes to then a committee. So I don't know if y'all saw last week where we elected a new Speaker of the House. You have a Speaker of the House, that's the House chamber. Then you have the Lieutenant Governor in the Senate chamber. And so that's another layer to the puzzle, is that you have two different chambers with their own committees that your bill has to work through. So once your bill gets out of, gets to somebody says, you know what, I like Senate Bill 1015 better than Senate Bill 3 because you have their numbered. It goes to a committee. Last week, we have now the first time in decades, I believe. I don't want to quote it because I don't know exactly, but since my lifetime that I remember, that we have now all Republican chairs of committees and then Democrats as vice chairs. Some committees were eliminated, some were added. We had a government efficiency added, similar to what we have now at the federal level. But once the bill gets chosen, so to speak, it goes to the committees. They debate it. You have public hearings. That's where we come in sometimes to go testify to the committee on certain issues. Once it gets out of committee, it goes to each chamber. So it goes to the House and the Senate. They must both agree on this bill for then it to go to the governor's desk. Okay. Then the governor has, going back to elementary school, veto power. So he can say, after all those, that takes several months sometimes for that to work it through. I don't like that. So unfortunately, Texas Realtors had several bills for HOAs and different things last time that were vetoed by the governor. So we're all excited, and boom, he was like, just kidding. So that's kind of how it works. Then you go back, then you work throughout the year when we're not in session. You meet with your legislators. Look, this is why we needed this. You go back when they come back home, you let them know in your region. I was going to say that earlier, hearing talked about the 124 elections that we had. We have over 50 state legislators just in the Houston area. In our county region that we cover, the lieutenant governor is from Houston. Our former Speaker of the House, Speaker Phelan, was out of Beaumont. So in our region alone, we have a large amount of legislators, Democrat and Republican, that we see around town, you see back in your home. So that's where the members come in. I'm just gonna make a plug for the advocacy piece. When your local state representatives back home, let them know, hey, we saw what you did last time and we really were concerned, or we loved what you did. And I'd always be negative. You can let them know something that that you loved as well. But that's what's important. And that's why Realtor Day at the Capitol is cool, because we actually get to converge and go to where they are, to their offices, and they see the sheer number and strength of realtors in Texas.
I see. And if there's a member that, wants to get involved and they want to ask or talk to those representatives, like, I saw what you were trying to do last year, I want to help, how can they keep up with what, bills are trying to get pushed through? Is there like a platform somewhere where they can look to see what's in process, what got vetoed, what didn't?
There is a platform, Texas Legislature Online, or TLO, has a website where you can look up any your member, we get calls all the time saying, who's my state rep? Who's my so-and-so? I have this issue. So you can see that. You can see what bill, you can click and see what bills they filed, what they voted on, if they did vote. Texas, like I mentioned earlier, Texas Realtors has a great website that tracks statewide. It shows the candidates that we've supported, that we didn't, but you also have links to their websites, to their platform issues. And then they have their own legislative priorities on the website as well. So We have a website for HAR. It's local, and then we link. It's local stuff. Then we link to our state and federal issues, so then the members can see. And then there's other. You get emails all the time, so I'm sure you get emails. Claudia, you know this. There's great videos with explain our issue. I saw one just now from Bill Baldwin and Letitia Grant. As we were waiting, but we have great content tools. We have a government affairs toolkit that you can use to work through on HR.com to see who you need to talk to. Is this a local issue? Is this a state issue? Is this a federal issue? But we do have a lot of tools, and also we're there. Myself, Karen, our team. If you just have a question, you need to know how to get to somebody. But I will say too, you can. Yes, I would love for you to always come to me if there's a problem, but there's 50,000 members. And if you just see you go to a coffee with candidates and you meet your legislator, introduce yourself. Let them know that you're a member of HAR and you would love to get on their email distribution list or whatever it is. You should always take the opportunity to just make that connection.
Okay, awesome. That's really great. So hopefully you guys are writing that down. But yeah, if you have any questions, like they said, you can contact either one of them, but it's a great way to get involved and get to know what's going on and staying up to date. So Karen, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk a little bit about TREPAC. So can you explain what is TREPAC and how does it benefit our members?
TREPAC is the Texas Realtor Political Action Committee, and the mission of TREPAC is to raise and disperse funds to promote home ownership, protect real property rights, and increase political awareness. So basically, it's the grassroots tools that we have to help Amber do everything she does the moment that candidate decides to run for office. So it's where their relationship really begins, and we get to support these candidates that protect real estate, that protect the real estate industry as a whole. And really get to educate them on all these issues before they get into office so that when they get there, they know what they're talking about and can then reach back out to realtors as a resource on those issues that Amber discussed earlier.
Okay, that's great. And this is all TREPAC is members, right? Our HAR members?
So TREPAC, so it's Texas Realtors Political Action Committee. So it is all realtors coming together and just basically putting all their funds in one pot to support these candidates from the very beginning. So it's all, that's really the definition of an association, is coming together behind a common cause. And so that's really what the PAC does.
Great. Okay. And so, Karen, what are some important election dates that we should be paying attention to this year?
Oh my gosh, Claudia. So I spent the whole half the beginning of the year working on a calendar, but I can't remember all these dates. So I'm going to refer to them. So there's 2 elections every year. So one is in May, which is typically local municipal elections, and then one is in November. So for the May 3rd election, the candidate filing deadline, if you're ready to run and you love politics, you're going to remember this date because it's on Valentine's Day. So that's the candidate filing deadline for the May 3rd election. And then early voting begins April 22nd and ends April 29th. And election day, as I mentioned, is May 3rd. And then in November, candidates must file by August 18th. Early voting begins on October 20th and ends on October 31st. Happy Halloween. We have 2 holidays in these dates this year. And then election day is November 4th. So lots going on in 2025.
Yeah. And so I know a lot of members do forget about the May dates, the spring. they get or starting almost into summer, they get so caught up with spring buying and selling, and that date, those May elections usually get, kind of forgotten a little bit, right?
Right, but it's very important to participate because those are really your local elections. And as Amber mentioned earlier, politics is all local, just like we hear about real estate all the time. It's local, local, local. Yeah. So it's very important to get involved. And that includes, when I say municipal elections, it usually includes cities like Sugar Land, Pearland. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about.
Okay. All right. So now we've given the members a lot of information about, what you all do, what we work hard to do every year. But how can our members get involved in each of your departments? We'll start with Amber.
So I'm the staff liaison for the Government Affairs Advisory Group. We've already made our selections for 2025, but we do have opportunities, events throughout the year to get involved. One of them is Realtor Day at the Capitol. And that's a limited number of seats because you're on a bus. So definitely want to pay attention for that pretty soon. And then we also have other events throughout the year, elected officials receptions, to meet, mix, and mingle with elected officials in a environment that's always, festive and fun, but also informative. We also have at the end of the year our housing symposium, which again ties all those local, state, and federal issues together. We collaborate with other departments at HAR to make sure that it's a really engaging and educational event. But also, too, we have times we need to go to city council and speak. Right, this year we have short-term rentals on the agenda. It's at Houston City Hall, so that's an opportunity where we might send a call to action out to our entire membership, asking to either click and send an email to your city council member, or to come down to City Hall and actually testify of why we need or don't need or input. So there's a lot of ways to get involved at HAR. The most rewarding way to me, if I was a realtor, would be to join one of our advisory groups. Right. If you don't get in the first time, continue to try and also attend events.
Yeah. And Karen?
Absolutely. So I'm the liaison to 3 different advisory groups. And then also we have Grant Trammell on my team who's liaison for the PAL group. So we have lots of different options as far as committees, but as Amber mentioned, we've already made the selections for 2025. But we also have TREPAC events where you can network with realtors and learn more about the whole process. We typically have at least one a month. We're very involved in really all the committee work that goes on. We have all different types of events. You'll see a presence at Realtor and Celebration, at Engage, at Management Central events. So you'll see us out and about, and just come and ask questions and talk to us and learn all about the process.
Yeah, that's great. So in total, how many committees combined that deal with political affairs, governmental affairs at HAR?
6.
6.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then what would be the dates if our members are interested in joining and applying? That's in later on this year. You've already chosen 2025, but for later this year for 2026.
I say come to Engage, and we always have a booth and table, but that time, so Engage is always October. So, right. And then typically the application opens in November.
Okay.
To December, yeah, and it's on the website. Should be when you click on go into your matrix to log in to har.com. You'll see like a pop up to remind you.
Okay, great. Yeah, and as you guys mentioned, you're very accessible to our members. You want them to contact you if they have any questions about any of the elections, any of the bills, laws, any of that. So letting our members know to contact Karen and Amber if you have any questions on how to get involved, TREPAC, governmental affairs, Realtor Day at the Capitol, whatever that is, feel free to reach out to each of them. So do either of you have any last words before we sign off?
Karen, you go first.
Okay. I was like, Amber, you're doing. Okay, so no, I just want to thank everyone for listening and finding out more information about what we do here and the grassroots efforts that we do all the time. And we really look forward to working with you to make 2025 a wonderful year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Piggybacking off of that, we look 2025 is going to be a great year. I feel it's exciting. So I would just say, no matter what you're seeing in the news or on Twitter or social media, just stay involved, stay active, and make sure you're seeking the real answers. And if you see something you don't like or you're concerned about, give us a call, reach out. There's really no issue too small. At least direct you to the right path. But also I would just say to remember that HAR is an association built of realtors, and we really, really thrive and want member engagement at every level, but especially member engagement and boots on the ground in our departments, because you guys make those decisions. We're here as a tool and a resource, but we work with you, so we need you to get involved.
Yeah, that's so great. And so thank you both again for joining us today. I know our members really appreciate all of that information. So remember to reach out to each of them if you have any questions. But that's it for today's Member Focus Monday. And before we sign off, I did wanted to let everybody know that Christina Schaefer will be back from maternity leave to host next week's Member Focus Monday. We're all excited to have her back, so make sure to tune in. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you, Claudia.
Bye, everybody.